Please.
Hello?
Okay. All right. Okay, I am calling to order the regular meeting of the West Basin Engineering and Operations Committee and a special meeting of the West Basin Board of Directors. Mr. General Manager, we have a determination of quorum.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Director Tommy Favai. Here. Chairman Desi Alvarez.
Here,
Director Gloria Gray.
Here.
Director Don Deere. Here. Director Scott Houston. Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
okay. So, do we have any public comments, Mr. General Manager?
We have not received any requests for public comment prior to this meeting, though this meeting is being held both in person and virtually. If there's any member of the public that would like to speak under public comment, please indicate so by raising your virtual hand. And I do not see any requests for public comment.
Okay, then, we don't have any presentations.
Correct.
So we will move to the action calendar. The first item is 5A, authorization for the general manager to execute a joint powers agreement establishing the Southern California Regional Water Authority. So Mr. General Manager, please introduce that item.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this item will be presented by Alejandra Cano Alvarado, Engineer 1. The item begins on packet page 3, and I may have some comments at the conclusion of the presentation.
And I may too.
Thank you, Vijay. Good afternoon, members of the committee. This item is presented to the committee as part of an ongoing effort to collaborate in addressing current water reliability challenges that the region might have. As many water agencies in Southern California continues to face different issues related to imported water availability, climate change, and the need to develop new local and regional water supplies, more substantial regional collaboration has become increasingly important. The Joint Power Agreement, or JPA, is an effort developed by several public agencies to collaborate and to form what now we call the Southern California Regional Water Authority as a mechanism to jointly evaluate, plan, finance, and potentially implement regional water supplies and infrastructure projects. The authority is intended to support regional collaborations on initiatives such as water supply development and reliability, water exchange, interconnections, groundwater storage, desalination, stormwater capture, water recycling, and other projects that improve regional water supply reliability and resiliency, and that may provide mutual benefits to participating agencies. The initial member agencies include Callejas Municipal Water District, the City of Burbank, Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, Las Virgenes Municipal Water District, Los Angeles County Water Works District 29, Santa Clarita Valley Water Agency, Upper San Gabriel Valley Municipal Water District, and West Basin. It's important to note that joining the authority doesn't commit West Basin to any specific project, financial contribution, or any debt obligation. Any future projects participation or funding commitments will be brought back to the board for separate review and approval. And therefore, there is not an immediate fiscal impact on these action items. Participation in the authority will allow West Basin to collaborate with regional partners, remain engaged in future water supply opportunities, and evaluate potential projects while remaining local control over all future decisions. With that, I will read the recommendation. that the board authorized the general manager to execute the joint power agreement establishing the Southern California Regional Water Authority, subject to non-substantial revisions approved by the legal or general counsel. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Director Clavey, any questions?
No questions.
Great. Director Gray, do you have any questions? So,
Mr. Chairman, if I could I just wanted to
go ahead.
maybe provide a bit of well, just some
More background.
some thoughts. First and foremost, I want to thank Alejandra, who's been participating in a working group led by Las Virgenes when it comes to the program and project that people would refer to as Ocean Well. West Basin has been very engaged in this process, and I want to kind of shine a light on the fact that from my perspective, at that time, we were kind of joining somebody else's party, if you will. We were there, we were participating, but it really wasn't a West Basin group or organization. Through our conversations with Las Virgenes, and I would say most notably their general manager, Dave Peterson, what we've been able to do is work with them to really broaden up the scope of what they were trying to accomplish. And I think Alejandro did a great job of presenting that today, which this is not about one singular project. This is about water reliability and regional water reliability and working with those entities to find potential solutions to our region. It's important to note that, as she mentioned, LA County Waterworks 29 will become a signatory to the JPA. They are one of West Basin's retailers. We've now met with them on 2 specific occasions to talk about this and talk about our view of this and our desire to broaden this up. And I just wanted to say that because I think that their leadership within their working group deserves a great deal of credit for listening in to the multiple different voices and opinions on this matter. And Dave has done an excellent job working with his legal counsel to present the language that you have before you today in a draft JPA. Although that JPA language is not finalized, our request is the authorization for myself as general manager to execute it once it's done, as long as there's not any significant or substantive changes to the draft. So with that, staff is happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. I guess I first start off with a comment. This is, as you mentioned, Mr. General Manager, that something that was began by Las Virgenes as part of the Ocean Well project that they have been sponsoring. Ocean Well being using the pressure in the ocean for desalination purposes. And these would be large pods that are going to be set offshore. And then there'll have to be a pipeline eventually constructed and bringing water on shore. Las Virgenes is sponsored the first part of a pilot study using their reservoir, and they're now moving forward to a full-fledged full shale study with a pod somewhere in Santa Monica Bay. And the idea was to help promote that. I think that it's very beneficial to explore that technology, any additional water supply technology that we can bring to bear to help alleviate our water supply needs. It's a worthwhile investment. So to the end that they need support in the permitting and regulatory realm, which is one area that they will need support. I think that entering into a JPA is a good idea, and that there will be some nominal costs associated with that. And I say nominal because if we split it between all of the parties, it should not be that much. But it is very important to move this type of technology forward if the technology proves to be fruitful. I am cautious that we don't invest in the actual project itself. There is a vendor, they're very well financed, they're a very large international corporation. This is an R&D effort on their part. and any associated costs with building a pipeline or anything else as part of the project is something that they should bear. So if, to the extent that we move forward with that and any other projects, we do need to be very cognizant of what the costs are gonna be. But in terms of the ocean wall, I think it's the lead project that this has all been formed for. And it's something that we should support and recognize that investing and helping to support the regulatory and permitting issues is a worthwhile investment. But beyond that, we have a vendor that's very deep pocketed and should pay for the rest of the cost. So with that, Director Pavay, we finally moving this forward.
Yes.
Any other comments? All right, we'll move this forward and we'll move to our next item, which is item 5B, an amendment to the agreement for the supply of nitrified and boiler feed recycled water to the Torrance Refining Company. Mr. General Manager, please introduce that item.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this item will be presented by our Assistant General Manager, Eric Owens, and the item begins on packet page 20.
Good evening, directors. This should be a familiar item to you because it was before the board and committee back in, I believe, January for the previous amendments. What this item consists of are 3 amendments to the contracts that we've had in place with the Torrance Refining Company since the 1990s, needing to be amended for another 5 months in order for us to continue negotiations on contract terms for a new contract. I just remind the board that the Torrance Refining Company, once the ExxonMobil or Mobil Oil Company back in the 90s when we originally partnered with them, were an early adopter of our recycled water, being one of the first to take nitrified water that we produce on their facility. In 1998, we expanded their use of recycled water by constructing a boiler feed system that purifies the water to such a quality they can use it in their boiler feed systems. And the third amendment that you see, or the third item being amended in today's item, is for a lease agreement, because while we have owned those facilities in the past and we constructed them, the facilities are located within the refinery property. And so we do have to have a lease to continue operating them. And as a reminder, we are in the process of negotiating not only new terms for supply of water quality, supply of the water to them, but new water quality terms, new payment terms, asset transfer of the facilities, and eventually, potentially a complete turnover of the operations of those facilities to them. And so there's not much more to say than that, other than it is my goal with the departure of our executive manager of strategic programs who was handling this negotiation. I'll be stepping into the negotiation. I've had an opportunity already to speak with the refinery and just get their opinion on where we're at. I've had a chance to kind of delve into the various items that we're working on. And it does appear to me that we're pretty close to being able to bring a complete new agreement to this board within the next couple of months. And so our target in the working group is to get this new agreement completed within 3 months. And then with these 5-month extensions, that should allow up to 2 months for the city of Torrance to review it. They are also going to be a signatory on this. It should allow plenty of time for us to bring it through our board cycle for approvals, and of course for the refinery themselves to run it through their corporate chain for signatures as well. And so again, we hope to have this completed and done and not to see another extension here within 3 months, and then have that 2-month buffer to finish this up and get it executed by November 30th, 2026. And with that, I can take any questions.
Thank you. Director Pavay, any questions?
No questions.
Director Deere? Director Gray, do you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you. Thank you.
So this is just a lease extension, of which we've done several now.
It's for three different contract extensions. One is the property lease, and one is for the supply of nitrified. One is for the supply of boiler feed. The new contract that we are intending to complete and bring to this board will be one combined contract for the supply of boiler feed and nitrified. So we won't have these separated agreements.
One of the background factors previously was the issue of the city of Torrance and their rates and so on. Is that resolved and that's a done deal now, or is that still pending? Is that delayed these extension or these agreements?
No, it's my understanding that the city has already applied their 5% markup. Their involvement is actually only included in the nitrified contract. The city is a signatory on that historically, but as it turns out for these amendments, the city is not a signatory on the lease or the boiler feed. However, I believe they're already, it's already set in place that they are getting their 5% markup of the volumetric costs that the refinery is paying for both waters. And they will be a signatory to the new contract for the supply of both waters.
Okay. All right. Otherwise, it's just an extension through November. It allows you time to finish negotiating and bring back a 5-year agreement.
Yep.
Okay. Judge Pade, can you move this one forward?
I concur.
All right, so with that, we will move on, and the information calendar, the first item up is the DCS replacement project. So, Mr. General Manager, who's going to be providing the cost and schedule update?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this item will be presented by John Benner, our engineer 3. The item begins on packet page 153.
Thank you. Good afternoon, directors. The item is on page 153. We'll be starting on page 159 for the presentation today. Good afternoon, directors. I'm here today to present an information item on the DCS replacement project. So today I'll be updating you on the latest schedule and budget estimates for the construction phase. This slide gives an overview of the DCS replacement project schedule. Cost estimates here are shown as those green lines, demonstrating the anticipated cost estimate narrowing as we approach that GMP, the guaranteed maximum price. We anticipate receiving that guaranteed maximum price estimate in September this year, and we aim to bring it to the board in October. At that point, the board will have the option to proceed with the guaranteed maximum price and move into the construction phase, or take that off-ramp option and end the project early. The red dashed line here shows our current status. As you can see, we have received the Class 5, Class 4, and now the Class 3 construction cost estimate, which I'll be presenting on the next slide. For the construction schedule, we're anticipating the final cutover of the system to the new system towards the end of 2028, calendar year 2028. And we're currently developing a cutover plan and defining how long the system may need to be shut down. I'm happy to report that this design phase of the project is proceeding on schedule and on budget, despite discovering an additional 4,000 previously unknown hardwired points during the loop checks in October. And that caused a cost overrun of approximately $80,000. But since then, we've worked with the project team to de-scope other tasks and find efficiencies, and we've managed to bring the budget back within the original amount. We're now forecasting remaining fully within budget through to the GMP, and we don't anticipate spending any of the contingency. Next slide, please. So this slide shows how the construction cost estimates have changed as we proceeded through design. The black line shows the actual estimates, while the dotted lines show both the upper and lower ranges as defined in the standards that have been developed by the Association for the Advancement of Cost Engineering, AACE. As you can see, the range narrows as the design is developed and decisions are made. It begins at minus 50% plus 100% of the estimate at Class 5, and then has now narrowed to minus 20 to plus 30% for the current Class 3 estimate. By the time we get to the GMP, the estimate range will be minus 15 to plus 20% either side of that black line. Range that will be incorporated into the GMP as contingency. You can see here the black line, the primary estimate has trended upwards slightly over the last year. The roughly $350,000 increase from Class 5 to Class 4 estimate was mostly due to the addition of 5 years of full system support that we baked into the cost estimate. This additional support and subscription costs actually added approximately $1.5 million to the estimate, but the system we selected at that point was less expensive than we initially anticipated, and that reduced the estimate by around 1.2 million, so that led to a net increase in the cost estimate of around $300,000. Between the Class 4 and Class 3 estimate, we added some optional allowances to the cost. So these are optional add-ons to the construction phase the district may wish to include later. For example, there's approximately $350,000 in there for preparing the Torrance site for a potential cutover to refinery ownership. So if this option is realized, we are expecting the refinery to pay those additional costs, and this has been communicated to them. In addition, there is $200,000 in allowances for an optional additional loop check phase to be completed immediately before the system cutover. This task could potentially reduce the risk associated with the system cutover and shutdown. However, the district and staff have not yet decided if that risk reduction is worth the additional expenditure. So it's in there as an optional allowance for now. These allowances account for just over half of the increase from Class 4 to Class 3. The remainder of the increase is mostly due to receiving updated vendor quotes and developing more detailed material and software requirements. For example, we've recently decided to include a slightly more expensive cybersecurity package than previously planned due to concern around the increase in cyber attacks on similar agencies. We're now planning a full 24/7 cybersecurity monitoring system that will ensure the district's treatment systems, the control systems, meet or exceed all recommended security levels. One additional thing I'd like to report on this slide is that, well, it's not on this slide, but Representative Ted Lieu has selected this project in his funding priority list for the upcoming federal budget. His office has requested funding of $750,000 and will update the board if that request is successful. We're also actively pursuing other funding opportunities. I hope to have some good news for you in the future. Next slide, please. This is a zoomed in schedule of the current phase of the project, the pre-construction phase. As mentioned, we anticipate bringing the GMP to this committee in October, alongside a recommendation of award for construction management for the construction phase. Prior to that, however, in August, staff anticipates bringing a recommendation of award for design services for a new server room in the existing ECL admin building. The need for a new server room was considered last year, but has become increasingly apparent during the design phase of this project. The work involved is minimal. It's effectively, we're taking an existing office within the ECL admin building and giving it a separate AC and fire suppression system to make it into a dedicated server room. The original intent was to use our on-call design consultants, but unfortunately none of them have the resources or the required architectural skills for this work, and so we need to go out for a formal bid. Therefore, we'll be bringing this award back to the board in the next couple of months. The anticipated contract cost for this is going to be less than $150,000, and it is included in the FY27 budget. Next slide, please. And so finally, on to the next steps. Next steps will be to procure that design consultant for the server room, to continue developing the design for this new DCS system, and then to finalize the dozens of new standards and governance documents that we're currently developing for the new system. The aim is to have all of this wrapped up in September for incorporation into the GMP, which we'll present in October. And with that, I'll conclude my presentation. Open up to any questions.
Thank you. Director Pavey, any questions?
No questions, but I have a comment. Thank you for your presentation. It's always good to see, the next steps, moving forward. And look forward for, to bring back to the board on pre-construction and so forth. So thank you.
Director Jim?
Nothing.
Director Gray?
No, thank you.
On the presentation, can we go back to, I think, slide 3?
Yeah, the cost estimate.
Yeah, that is
1.6.
So, couple of things. John, you mentioned that there's, as we're going through the process, you've added added a couple of components to the project that were previously not there,
Correct, yeah.
and you briefly described them. But there's not much of a description in the staff report, so I was wondering if we could maybe provide us with written
Excellent.
description of what those are.
Just for clarity, would you like a description of the large items? We made a lot of decisions in the last year or so,
Well-
just the biggest impact.
Specifically of all the new items that you've added above them that were not part of the initial project.
Okay, understood.
And you referenced quite a few. So it'd be nice to have a better understanding of those. And then on that graph that you have on that slide, that's a class 3 estimate at this point.
Correct, yes.
So that's plus or minus, I don't know, 30%.
It's minus 15 plus 20, sorry, minus 20 plus 30 at this point.
Okay. So we have actually gone up in cost as we refined the cost. How much of that would be due to the fact of these additional components that we've added?
It's difficult to say exactly because we made a decision on the system selection that actually reduced the cost by around 1.53 million. And then we added some additional things. So for the last estimate, I'd say that the addition in cost about $500,000. But I can dig more into that. That's the difference between a class 4 and class 3.
So I would at least appreciate then when you come back with a written description of all of the add-ons or modifications that you are considering to the project, what the additional cost is for each of those.
So, yeah, absolutely.
And we'll probably have this on the agenda for next month. But be nice to receive that material before then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
Nope.
All right, so we will move on to the second item on our information calendar, which is the engineering operations update for the water production and asset management.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this item will be presented by both Susanna Lee, our Manager of Engineering, as well as Mario Batista, our Engineering Supervisor. And the item begins on packet page 164.
Good afternoon, directors. You're all doing well. As EJ mentioned, the report begins on page 164 and the presentation begins on page 170. Before we both begin on the presentation, I just want to just highlight on the report itself that water quality has going to ECL has been stable since the last water quality event. And there have been a couple of major coordination efforts from both the operation teams and the engineering teams on the potable water side. There were a couple of major shutdowns that our staff been coordinating with MWD and Golden State, as well as Cal Water and Manhattan Beach. So thank you for their effort to help our purveyors. And one additional item that I want to bring to your attention was that there was a hypochlorite leak at JMM on June 7th. And together with the West Basin compliance team and Jacob's team, we have reported all the necessary information to the regulators, and we'll be following with them with any details that they will require. With that, we can jump to the presentation. This month update, as normal, we will be bringing to the board updates on the sales and as well as asset management and maintenance work. But this month we added some updates on the membrane replacement efforts, and because of the O&M contract is coming to 9 months, and we want to present to the board the KPIs that added to the contract and what we can expect to see as the contract terms continue. So with that, we can go to the next page. Look ahead. So for the month of July, we'll have one action item. Hopefully we come back to the board to bring updates on the fence replacement project. And then for information, we'll provide some updates on the Mills Park and the North Gardena project, and then quarterly CIP reports. there's no questions, we can move to the next page.
Susanna, could I interject real quick? On the previous slide, the approval for solicitation, we were also contemplating whether the board even wants to see a approval for solicitation or whether you'd rather us just come back with the award or the contractor of the fence installation. I suspect you've heard enough about the fence to our
I
comfort.
thought it was finished.
That's what you said. We went over this already. I thought we had provided a lot of direction.
Yep.
To the point where I thought we were micromanaging it. So I don't think you need to come back.
Okay,
I don't think so either, yeah.
there
Perfect.
was,
Yeah.
okay.
Thank you.
Just do it.
Thank you.
We will bring the contractor award to you.
Yes.
Great. Have a fence soon enough. Okay, production. So this graph you might be familiar with for you because you've seen this in the finance committee. Just the main point is that we continue on this upward trend, that we're meeting the monthly estimates and budget. And we are projecting to hit the 95% of our FY 25-26 budget sales. And this, I give credit to a lot of our teams, production teams work to try to bring a lot of the equipment that were out of operations the last few years. And then also working together with Jacob's teams to bring back reliability, but also really working close with our Hyperion counterpart in the county to bring to light any upcoming shutdowns and then to continue to push for the barrier production. So it's been a great year. So next slide is just a little different view of the production ourselves. You have the green bar looking at the FY 25-26 budget for each of the product line, and then the shaded is the last year's production, the month. This is year-to-date production, so up to May, obviously, and then the deep purple is for this current fiscal year. So the most part, the takeaway is that Title 22 is trending a little bit down compared to budget, but and barrier is the other major deviation from the budget, but everything else is doing really well compared to the budget. Any question?
Well,
Next slide.
I do have a question. In general, production this year versus budget is pretty much on target, with the exception of the barrier. And is that because of issues on our end or issues on the county's end or a combination of both?
Combination of both.
Mostly on the county.
There was, in July, we were still waiting on certain parts there was a leak, and then we had to extend it to July to August before we can bring production back up. So that took out most of July. And then at the same time, the county had some well or unexpected leak on their end as well. So that extended the shutdown of the reduction period in the early part of the
Maybe
fiscal
you
year.
could jump to the graph that is familiar with. I think
We can
it's
go to
slide.
the,
What's that?
we can go to the next slide or another one,
Next.
the next one. So you can see July and that portion, there is a leak repair that took down most of the July and part of August productions. But since then, like we've been able to meet 90+% of injection target. And we've been working closely with the county to make sure that we can maximize recycled water injection. So now that we have a monthly coordination meeting, three-way coordination meeting with WRD, the county, and West Basin. So we're working closely to hit our objective.
If
So
I
they
could-
are aware of our our annual target, as well as what the county can able to allow us to inject to the barrier.
I was just gonna add that, Suzanne is probably being
He's been
diplomatic
very nice.
for our partners at the county. What this graph really, I think, reveals is, yes, in that very first couple of weeks of the fiscal year, that reduction was on us and hardly. But since then, virtually every single indicator on there was something outside of our control, whether it was power, whether it was water quality from Hyperion, or mostly a lot of those white, valleys there were related to the county doing maintenance, where they may have told us a downtime for a certain stretch of time, but then took much longer to return to service. And so we saw much longer periods of downtime with reduced performance than we even expected and budgeted for. And so if you really focus on the right-hand side of that graph, since this calendar year, virtually every drop that the county will put into the ground, we've been able to supply to them. And that's probably for the first time, maybe in the history, but certainly in the last 10 or 20 years, where we've had this kind of reliability and supply availability for the county. So I don't want to give them too much credit.
No, I think we should point out that a lot of the reason that we are delivering less water than would be optimum is because of the county. And there's two issues that maybe you can address. One is the fact that they've had to shut down for whatever maintenance, and those have been for a fairly extended period of time. And then the limitation that they're setting on the authorized amount of water that goes in. And if you just look at the right-hand side, we went from 12 MGD to 11.5 MGD, but in reality, you could put in about 14 or 15 MGD.
I'll take this. There's two components to what the county will allow us to do, right? And there's one of what elevations they feel that are appropriate to add water to. And they make that call as to determine how much water will go into the ground. And of course, historically, that's been a combination of potable water and recycled water. We are permitted to deliver 100% recycled water into this barrier. However, the county believes that it's prudent to maintain some level of buffer. And that would be, if you look at the right-hand side of that graph, that is really the blue line that is getting smaller and smaller as the year goes on. And that's because Susanna and her team have been pressing on the county at every chance possible to reduce that buffer of potable water. And I mean, you can almost not even see the blue line now. What is it? Maybe a couple of points of an acre foot that they want to put in. And that just makes them feel better that water supply is going in. But we're very confident, I think, that they'll come around and eventually let us put 100% into that barrier, which we've never done historically, even though we've been permitted to supply 100% recycled water since 2013 at least.
And back to then that, Susanna, you mentioned that you're meeting more, you have been meeting for a long time, but I guess you're meeting more regularly with WRD and the county. So as a result of those meetings, do we think we can get to what Eric said about 100% this next year?
You can take that one.
I think, to clarify, the 100%, as Eric mentioned, like we are close to the 100%. What is the county capable at this point? Because there are a number of wells that they need to continue to rehab. This area of wells are old. So we have been continuing to ask them what is the maximum injectable limit for the barrier. And at this point, like I think a week ago, they mentioned is 12 MGD at this moment. The 14 MGD, we'll take that question and see when they target, but all the wells will be rehabbed.
Let me go back to this whole kind of, and it is an art. how much water you can put in the barrier. You can push it one direction or the other. So setting aside imported water is where we maintain the height of that of the barrier, and that's going to affect the amount of water you're going to be putting in. Is that set strictly by the county, or is WRD exerting more of an influence in setting that up? Now, go ahead, you answer.
It's the county, they continue to monitor the health of the barrier. And so they continue to review what the chloride level and the water level. And they would give us the target and they would adjust it almost weekly. And because they would change as frequent as that. So the answer is the county. But WRD does remind them, hey, you gave us this annual target and what is going on or what
So-
are the upcoming work that is
At
impacting.
one time, and I'm assuming it's still the same, but I haven't talked to anybody over there recently about it. They used to model that, and they used to come up with what they would also recommend as a height of the water elevation at the barrier. Is that still something that's happening?
Yeah, they continue to have those model updated.
Okay, so what's the delta between what their model is showing versus what the county is coming up with?
That I'll have to follow up.
Yeah, we may need to talk to WRD about that.
Because that used to be a big point of discussion back in the day when I was more active in all that, but be interesting to see where we're at today.
Okay.
So maybe next time we do this presentation, we can talk about that.
Maybe
You'll
get
have that
WRD
information.
presented.
Hmm.
Just as a reminder too, directors, our contract with WRD allows up to 17,000 acre feet per year. Clearly, with the numbers you see here, that we'll probably close this year out around 12,000 total going into the barrier, so well below that 17. And I've looked at historical numbers. I think the highest we've ever put in total, both recycled water and potable water into the barrier is about 16,000, maybe 16,500. Never achieved that full 17,000. Just never been called for.
Together with the
Together.
the 2017.
Right, it was that year kind of tail end of the drought. We did have one more slide if you want to go back.
If you want to go back, that kind of just compared to last few fiscal year. I mean, we're operating at the highest since the last few years, and we're projecting to hit the 95% of our budgets. And this graph is just highlighting that we're really close and close to next year's projection as well of budget.
Thank you.
To enable all these productions, obviously we need membrane. So we're gonna try to bring to some attention on membrane activities that's going on the last few months. Just want to highlight, we continue to try to optimize our operations. So this is one good story just want to bring to light. Is that we work with a third-party recycler and that we were able to participate and coordinate, have Jacobs coordinate some of the previous 2 times replacement, the recent membrane replacement. And this third-party recycler provide crates, and so they help the maintenance staff to be able to organize these used membranes and then ship them back to the recycler free of charge. And so we don't have to pay for disposal costs. And then from the maintenance staff, they really appreciate this effort because it helped them to organize and it made the replacement a lot more efficient. It used to take at least 3 days to replace a train, and it shortened it down to 1 day because it's just a lot more efficient this way, and it's free. So, and these membranes are being reused. So this is a good story to let the board know. And with that, and just want to let the board know of a couple upcoming activities, because like I said, to have this productions, we really need to have membranes. And I'm gonna turn it over to Mario and to let you know some of the replacement activity that will be going on soon.
Thanks, Susanna. Good afternoon, directors. So I'm going to go to the next slide, please. So this is our membrane replacement schedule. I'm not going to go through this. It's really just to highlight and hopefully describe the reason why we're going through a membrane pre-qualification process that I'll describe in the next slide. These two tables, however, they show the totality of MF units and RO trains within our recycled water process. And it's helpful to kind of look at that quantity altogether. We can see across our facilities, we have over 5,500 MF modules and over 8,000 RO elements. Within this table, you can also see the useful life or the contract life. Broadly, it's usually estimated right around 5 years. There's some instances where at 3 years, that's typically driven by refinery contracts that get mentioned in one of our previous authorizations for membrane replacement. That in the instances where we have these more frequent changeouts, we have more stringent water quality requirements that are being requested by the refinery. And so we baked that into the pricing of these updated agreements. And then that last column shows the fiscal year of forecasted replacements. And really kind of the punchline is within the next 3 fiscal years, the vast majority of these membranes are going to be slated for replacement with just a few exceptions. Now, obviously, those replacements are going to be based on actual performance. This is just how we're forecasting, but we want to be prepared for that eventuality, which is why we're going to, of course, we've already started a membrane pre-qualification process. Give me the next slide, please. So membrane pre-qualification efforts is something we haven't done in a little bit of time, but basically what we're doing is we're taking a list of whether it's microfiltration modules or RO elements that the specifications meet our water quality requirements, and then we test them at our facility so we have real world data that we can rely on to have a short list of modules or elements when we go out for procurement that we're confident in their performance. So the immediate need is actually for our phase 4 microfiltration system. So the phase 4 microfiltration system along with our phase 5 microfiltration system are what provide feed water to our RO trains for barrier and Chevron boiler feed. The last time we did any pre-qualification or pilot testing was back in 2017. Since then, there have been, and this is a common theme also on the RO side, several new elements or technologies that have come on the market that fit directly as a replacement to these modules that are currently in place. So we want to make sure that we're testing the efficacy of these new modules, especially as we're getting to a place where we're seeing the water quality coming out of phase 4 declining and really requiring replacement fairly soon. So we've already gone through basically a technology survey, going out to the market and seeing what's available specifically for direct replacements. We don't have to have a capital investment. The idea is to take this list and verify the specifications and then move forward with approximately 6-month pilot testing. It's tentatively scheduled to start in November, which would translate to an August 2026 procurement with the lead time for those membranes. Our current approach right now is to do this via full-scale demonstration. So what does that mean? Phase 4 consists of 6 individual cells or basins. In each of those, we have 416 modules. Each of those basins can be operated roughly independently. What we've done in the past, and we propose to do here today, is replace each of those cells with those new products. So just right now, let's say there's 2 products that we shortlist. We'd do full-scale replacement of 2 cells, operate those, and we can compare them against the existing and get real-time data that we can very confidently compare to our production data. I bring this up because that's a more substantial cost than piloting. However, having done the 2017 piloting, I can tell you that one of the major issues with piloting is the concern about comparability. You can spend a lot of time just trying to dial in a pilot and hope that you get analogous performance to what you actually see, which can be a major waste of time, especially in the context of a situation where we have aging assets that need to be replaced fairly rapidly. We also have the added benefit of, regardless of what we see in terms of performance, obviously that short list, we understand the specifications are going to be met. So they're essentially, we're getting new membranes in 1/3 of the system. We can see an improvement in performance there while we're gaining data to make an informed decision for the remaining 4 cells. That's currently what we're proposing to do. These cells.
If I may add, it's just, I mean, going back to productions and looking at recent data, phase 4, we are seeing a more and more increased uptake of needing for pinning. And in order for us to continue with the maximizing productions, we see there is a good timing and justification to go just full scale testing rather than spend an extra 200, could be an extra $200,000 just to do a pilot testing phase. So that's the considerations that staff is making.
I got a question, Chair.
Right.
When you're when you're talking about the data and pilot testing, what agencies or what organizations that are actually, doing these type of, I would say maybe technology, and if there's data already out there when it comes to pilot testing and stuff like that. Yeah.
Definitely. So just to get to do this first step of the technology survey, we require them to provide their specifications that is based on testing that they have completed. So they have to meet kind of basic requirements for their rejection or the type of cleanings that they're capable of doing, the production that they're capable of. We do have a fairly difficult water quality. I'll just use as an anecdote when we were doing the 2017 pilot. We really needed membrane replacements. We actually took membranes from OCWD that were older than the ones that we had in place at the time in phase 4. And we got improved water quality out of older membranes. We replaced newer membranes with older membranes just because their influent water quality was less difficult. So there's a lot of variation between facilities, which is why we have to kind of do our own testing despite what the specifications may be. So they absolutely do come with a lot of data before we ever put them in to give us the confidence in the first place. Okay.
So just following up, you're going to be pilot testing 2 different membranes.
Scale.
Yeah, we're still going through that pre-qualification process, but I'm using that as an example. 2 different membranes. So that's probably safe.
Ultimately, how many are you going to pilot test?
I do think it's likely to. We haven't officially made that decision. It's my only. Yeah.
So, I'm coming back to the whole issue of American made, and membranes are not American made. So, as you go through the pre-qualification and identify vendors, you really need to push them. Look, we're going to give preference to American made product. We understand that they may be a little bit more expensive, but we're going to give preference to American made product.
Understood. Yes, but there's still an effort broadly in terms of how we structure the pricing, because it's going to be on a test basis. So it's not the same as just buying membranes for replacements. And we can absolutely work with procurement to see how we incorporate that and incentivize it.
But Mario, maybe you could speak to the information that we required the statement of qualifications to include related to which components are made of there.
Yeah, so there has been, we have requested, and I think it's a standard now, a delineation between whether they're assembled in the US, whether some of those raw materials or the actual flat sheet, or in the instance of RO, It's manufactured in the United States, so we'll have a lot more data, at least to make those informed decisions and also like a basis for preference.
Yeah, no. So we're just requiring them to provide us more information than they might otherwise as part of the response. So that at least we understand, even if they're not made in America, are there parts and pieces that are, as much as we can know, just so that we have that information.
Well, it's a good thing, and it's a way to just continue to encourage and make the industry aware that there is a market for American-made product. And if somebody stepped in and actually did it, they would have a ready market to sell that product in. Right, so go ahead.
Our next set of pre-qualifications, I'll go over this very quickly, is the RO membrane pre-qualification testing was last done in 2018. This one will actually be a little bit less of an investment because we already have infrastructure where we have a couple just inline pressure vessels that have additional monitoring that we can use for testing. So in this case, when I say 6 different RO membranes, we only need 6 elements of each versus a full cell microfiltration instance. Again, because we have that infrastructure, we can actually test 6 different RO membranes at relatively little cost, which is great because in the intervening 8 years, there have been a lot of new elements hitting the market.
If I could just add a little color here for both MF and RO. The reality is that no membrane is made equal when it comes to water quality. So while they may have similar performance claims, similar construction, the reality is you don't know exactly how efficient or how effective they're going to work. And especially in wastewater applications with recycling applications like ours, until you actually do these trials. So that's one of the reasons that West Basin has always put an emphasis on trialing products before we go and invest, entire full-scale systems in those. Because for 25 years or more, this district, more so than others, has recognized that not all membranes are created equal when it comes to wastewater treatment or recycling. And so, as Mario's mentioned, both the MF and the RO have progressed. Our water quality has certainly changed, in some ways for the better, in some ways for the worse since 2017. And so I think both of these efforts are really a good opportunity to just see how today's products will fare against the feed water quality that we're doing.
Thank you.
We can go to the next slide. So this next section is, Suzanne alluded to O&M contract KPIs, and you can go ahead to the next slide as well, please. So a critical part of our agreement with our contract operator, Jacobs, is these new key performance indicators. There's a total of 19 they're beholden to, and each of these has an associated incentive or penalty that we assess at the end of each contract year. So many of these are tracked on an ongoing basis, but as we approach the end of our first contract year, we're taking a very close look at the status of all of these. And what we've had Jacobs do as a part of their requirement is kind of report out to us or develop a structure to report out to us the status of each of these KPIs through a dashboard, which will show kind of the early iterations from. I'm not going to go through all of our KPIs, but just kind of broad overview. This first 9 are management, so that's personnel, safety, and then reporting requirements, both performance, compliance, and maintenance, as well as document management systems. Next slide. Operations. So again, as you might expect, permit compliance, production, product water quality, which has a number of subset requirements. Within those, you'll see how detailed that gets. We're really just passing through our permit and contract water quality requirements. Title 22 product water pump station discharge pressure. This one particularly has a lot of importance, obviously, for all our downstream customers and our satellite facilities, and then environmental compliance. And then finally, we have asset management, recorded on an ongoing basis, and you've seen those actually reported as a part of this presentation in the past. The next slide. Can you go to the next slide, please? So this is kind of our first iteration of an overall summary dashboard. So as I mentioned, some of these KPIs have a lot of data that sits underneath them, but the idea here is we wanted one page where we stop and look to get an idea of the health of the contract overall with respect to the KPIs at least. So at the top, we have the demand satisfaction rates that are tied to each of our product lines. So just really a production summary. How are we faring there? And then for some of these items that are more analog, where, did you provide the appropriate amount of personnel, or are you meeting your safety requirements? We've just kind of put in a dial gauge. So these aren't live yet, but this is just one way we're thinking of visualizing some of this. There's a lot of, I think we've already provided some substantial comments to them in terms of having pop-outs that provide further information. So if a person wants to come here, they can click into, hey, what exactly does working conditions mean, for instance, and get what that detailed KPI and what the metric is underneath it. But the idea is to have kind of one-stop shop for the status of our KPIs. Or we able to have kind of more online data associated with them. We have more detailed dashboards like our water quality KPI dashboard. Next slide, please. So this individual screenshot is just of the ECL plant influent, and you'll note that just for ECL, you can see on the left-hand side that there's 7 different tabs you can go into, each that includes the same kind of reporting in terms of water quality metrics, as well as an overlay of where it's applicable, what the permit limits are. So again, these are kind of ongoing, but we're getting to a point where we're starting to see draft getting back water quality or getting back comments. The idea is in the future, next time we do a production presentation, that we would be using these and presenting kind of the live data to you all. Right, with that, if you can go to the next section, go to asset management. All right, so maybe a stand-in for Jeremiah on this one. So, excuse me, he's our subject matter expert, definitely. So in terms of our CM to PM ratio, you see we've maintained the standard under that 20% target. It's trended slightly down, but is largely static. On the right-hand side is the emergency maintenance, which is a subset of corrective maintenance. This month, we did have an uptick in both the quantity of work orders and as well as a more moderate increase in the overall hours spent, where you can tell when that's rolled into our overall corrective maintenance versus PM ratio, we're still trending in the right direction. And that's a little more evident on the next slide. You can see here, that's where we've made kind of our major improvements, increasing the relative amount of time spent on preventative maintenance, getting the prevention and being the proactive mode versus the more reactive mode with our corrective maintenance. So it's a positive trend this month. And then finally, just wanted to show.
Next slide.
Finally, just wanted to show what the live asset management KPI dashboard looks like. Again, we're still kind of working on this and how we're gonna how best to visualize this. Right now, I'll say this tool is more geared towards kind of project manager use. So we're working on getting a summary sheet that's more applicable for the board and executives. But just a preview of what's been going there. And this has been something that Jeremiah spent a lot of time working with the Jacobs team, so he deserves a lot of credit for. I'll say this dashboard is further along than the others are. Next slide, please. So In parallel with that KPI work, the Jacobs Asset Management Team has also been working with West Basin staff to work on some condition assessment efforts. So this has been ongoing since the beginning of Jacobs agreement. And really, we finished the first round, which is to say an assessment of all the assets at all of our facilities, literally just at the beginning of this month. And so this slide is an overview of that effort. I will note that as a result of this, which really consisted of an asset management team alongside West Basin staff, physically going through every facility, photographing and documenting the condition of every single asset and recording that information, going through a very detailed checklist that's bespoke to the type of asset. So a very labor intensive activity. And as a result of that, they found over 2,300 additional assets that weren't in our CMMS system. So we didn't have any ability to have any visibility over doing any regular maintenance activities. So that's already a major improvement and a benefit to our asset management approach.
Can I add to this, as part of the contract? So part of the RFP, I should say, like we provided a existing list of assets, and then we provided existing what the PM level should be. So this is part of their requirements to come back and, hey, we did a condition assessment as part of the RFP. You confirm it and verify whether that level of efforts is matching what is in the proposal. So this is their initial effort to make sure that what they propose, what is in the contract matches what is out in the field. And what Mario alluded to, the additional assets. Yeah, different teams have their different ways of managing. Obviously, we found that there are 2,200 additional assets that Jacob's team would like to have more eyes on it. And that's what the result of this condition assessment or baseline assessment resulted in. So as Mario pointed out, this will provide more eyes on those assets that Jacobs determines that needs to have more attentions. So hopefully it will result in better management of assets.
So question, Chair. So when you mentioned the additional 2,900 assets that, so Jacobs is the one that actually identified these assets, or is this like working closely with West Basin
Yes.
and others? So how did those other assets come about?
They went out, so Jacob's team, as a management team, went out along with the local team to go plant by plant and then see and go to all the processes and identify what is in the CMMS and what is not identified, which they determine needs to be in the CMMS. So those equipments are already out in the field, but then that's just not being recorded in our database currently. So those 2,300 additional assets will be added to the CMMS. And if there's additional PM hours and whatnot, or like replacement schedule that will be added to the CMMS, that will be reflected in the CMMS database.
So what does that change? Because I'm trying to understand this, because the prior operator, if the prior operator did not identify these additional assets and not report it back to West Basin, then what does that change? What's the change for us to identify those, those additional assets?
So I can say this, like, I believe a lot of like electrical equipment might not have necessarily part of the previous teams, like, on the CMMS.
And that's the most
So that
important
will
thing
be-
is electrical
Yes.
work.
And we mentioned that, like, and then they have added a lot of them. I believe some of these 2,300, there may be
It's a lot of
additional
assets.
components that were not added. And which needs eyes on, like replacing filter and whatnot. I think those are included, and that was based on like a 2016 effort that we added those in. So what I mentioned is like different team had their management So I think Jacob's asset management team is following the ISO 19,000 standards. And then so they have their standards to identify what is supposed to be assets versus not.
So,
If I
So
could.
my last thing is, what is the gap between the prior, operator and now? How long did it actually take from the prior operator to now to actually identify those additional assets? How long did it take?
So that's
We just
roughly
finished it in
9
June.
months because they started pretty much right out of the gate, in September when they just again with this month.
I mean, that's
this
on and
first round.
off too, right? Because they had to schedule the team to come.
Certainly,
and
yeah.
Not so.
So 9 months?
Yeah,
It
from
took-
start to
it
finish
took
is 9
six.
months.
So-
It's good.
my concern is they've identified 2,300 additional assets. I'm pretty sure that the original 3,900 asset included the major pumps and everything else. Excuse me. I'm just, my throat gets really dry sometimes. So the major assets were pretty much identified. I have to pretty much assume that. Of the 2,300, how much are really substantial assets versus minor assets? Minor assets would be things like a pressure gauge, a snubber. Those are all assets. They should all be enumerated. They all need to be looked at periodically. But they may not have been part of the original one. And there's a lot of minor components. And it sounds like a big number, but the first thing I would say if they come back and say, well, we need more PM hours, you don't need PM hours for snubbers, cages, etc. There's a whole ton of them.
Yes.
And the numbers can become huge, but then you go, oh, so what?
Yeah, I would say, and this is actually a good lead into
2 minutes.
the remainder of the presentation because the second half after we're doing the condition assessment is to assess criticality and create tiers of criticality that have an associated level of how much we're doing maintenance on and the degree to which we're prioritizing them for replacement or capital. So that's very much a part of this effort is understanding for all of the assets, new and existing, where they land within.
So prior to the identification of the assets, really, you don't know if we were getting real data from those assets that haven't been identified.
So the previous KPIs, like I said, that's as good as what we have in the system right now. A lot of the 2,300, like we got a glimpse of like what these additional asset may be. I believe some of it, like when we say pump, it was just a pump, and now they might separate it into motor and the pump. So there's that.
It's gonna be
component.
interesting to see
So we'll see
once
how
one
much
does.
PMs.
Once when you actually do the full assessment, that's what's gonna tell the story of what the real data is being implemented.
So
Right?
part of the effort, like Mario mentioned, like we're gonna talk about the criticality analysis, and then after that, then we're gonna update the PM hours. So looking to make sure the PM efforts to those critical components are adequate, or like we can shave some PMs from the minor components, and then just to see where we land.
Is our hours for West Basin, when it comes to when you're actually tracking these type of assets, is our hours about comparable to what Jacobs put in to them to when they do their assessment? Is it almost comparable?
We rely.
Like, or does the ARP team and Jacobs team, do they work closely together to identify all the assets? And is the hours around the same, comparable?
Say, since I've been involved, Jeremiah specifically, this team has been highly involved. I think there's a larger team Jacobs is supporting because they have experts that are doing the assessment depending on the type. They have folks that are working to develop the visualizations. So there's a broader staff there, but it's been, yes, West Facing staff has been, I think, critical to this effort at every step of the way.
I wanted to add that without trying to take anything away from the effort that Jacobs has made, that, you know, our asset management development has been in development for longer than Jacobs has been here. And while they've done some really good work to identify these new assets, and we'll go through that next criticality phase, the reality is that they didn't do this just because it's good practice. They did it because it was a contractual requirement. And so our staff has absolutely looking over the shoulder, working with them to make sure that they're adhering to the contractual requirements.
Okay,
Because there's, prior to this, like 2016, 17, when I came on board, we started looking closely on the asset management. I mean, as we all know, garbage in, garbage out. There are a lot of missing data back then with the previous contract operators. And so we dictate a lot of like what needs to be in there, and we require now like what should be in there. So with some of the KPIs highlighted in the asset management portion, we're gonna ensure a lot of these required data will be in our CMMS database. And kind of answer to your questions, like are we tracking closely our set of data to their set of data? Previously, the CMMS was on the contract operator server, and we have moved that to West Basin server, so we have full access to the data, so we can see the data live, and so we can monitor that. And if we don't request information on repair, we don't hear back. Now Jeremiah and our team have access, and we can pull those data live and can compare to what they report back.
it's great. Thank you.
I may be getting ahead of your presentation, but, you know, the discussion comes up about then the definition of criticality that I just mentioned. There's a lot more assets as you can identify. There tend to be minor assets, but some of those minor assets may be critical, such as the sampling port. Some are more critical than others. Pressure gauges, some are more critical than others. But the criticality doesn't affect the maintenance that much of those minor assets. So do we really distinguish that, or is that something that you guys should pay attention to?
I think there's also current, so to your point, more than maybe a criticality assessment, one effort that's undergoing, or that's underway right now. It started with Jacobs that they're going to transfer to us for our review. Is a review. They're currently updating their standard PMs, their SOPs for PMs, and obviously a critical part of that is the standard amount of hours for each of those. So they're going through that exercise of trying what they think some of these things actually take. Because to your point, right, maybe there's an excessive amount of time included in what a standard PM is required for those. Once they are comfortable with, from their perspective, that's when they turn it over to us, and we have an opportunity to look at those things. Do we agree with it? Is there too much time being allocated to a specific type of asset, or, you know, an asset that's not critical?
As part of the criticality analysis that we just been involved with, we looked at obviously the reliability, redundancy, and the consequence, and then the risk. And then we also talk to maintenance staff and see what the likelihood of failure and the consequence of failures. All this factor into that result in determine whether this equipment or assets is critical to our processes. And then we also compare across to the all 5 different product lines. So there's a lot of components that will result into what is a critical asset. So all of this, Jacobs will provide a detailed report, and we've been participating into that workshop and to make sure that those are being analyzed correctly. So
I'm glad to hear from Eric that, um, that in the contract, it checkups that those language was actually added in there. And thank you for that.
And I think that's really the key message is that we're not just going to blindly accept whatever the operator tells us they need. We've got enough in-house knowledge and experience with this asset management system to vet what they say and to make sure we believe it and trust it before we adopt it.
You about done? Are you about done?
45 more slides.
Yeah, there's a few more, but we've talked about them in one fashion or another, so I can either move through them fairly quickly.
No, I just,
10 minutes?
because I wanted to come back about the asset management, the early part of the presentation. So if you, but you finish the presentation on asset management, and I'll
Sure.
ask my question.
Okay, can you jump to the next slide, please? This next slide just shows the output of that condition assessment. So on the left-hand side, you're seeing an example of the type of checklist that they're going through when they're looking at an asset in addition to taking photos and documenting it. And on the right-hand side, you see that output, which is the asset summary report, which in addition to showing photos that or show the condition, this particular asset, it also is providing it a score based on that spreadsheet and is also identifying that it's being completed in round one. The idea being that there's rounds being completed periodically so that we can get a trend of the condition of that asset over time. Next slide. So another activity that's happening in parallel is the predictive maintenance development. So this is a program specific to several of our high service pumps. We're trying to, again, get ahead of any maintenance requirements by doing some additional investigation, including motor circuit analysis or vibration analysis. That can help us better understand what type of maintenance activities may be needed. So this example is showing a Chevron nitrified high service pump 1. You're seeing that based on the right-hand side, it's a vibration analysis that there's potentially some bearing wear that's being indicated by that vibration analysis. So something that we need to be aware of and be prepared to do some maintenance on. Then we go next slide. So another example of this predictive maintenance now with the motor circuit analysis, in addition to having maintenance recommendations like the bearing wear that you just saw, the reports can also show what the potentially the annual energy usage or loss associated with some of these defects or warnings may be. So it shows annual energy usage as a prediction, then makes some assumptions to develop a potential energy cost of what we're incurring by not performing some of this maintenance activity. So then we can make a decision against what the cost of the proposed maintenance activity is, understand what that ROI is, understand how long we can or should wait until we effect those maintenance activities that are required. Next slide. And this is something that we kind of already talked about, which is what are the next steps, right? We have the condition, and to get the overall criticality, the other components that we're going to look at are both the consequence of failure, Suzanne mentioned, and the likelihood of failure for each asset. And those scores combine to give us an overall criticality rating. This is important not only for just our asset management program, but within the contract, we have a requirement for different types of monitoring based on whether an asset is determined to be criticality A and B categories that are tied to the contract. So again, this is going to be a collaborative effort because we have to come to a mutual agreement on which assets meet those definitions. Those are really the next steps. That's what we're working on moving forward. That's the end of that section. The next is just going over maintenance activities. So I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Right, so at the very beginning of your presentation, you had the dashboard up. And that software, asset management software I think was being populated. Is this the asset management software that we purchased that was gonna be integrated into the Jacobs? Or is this Jacobs asset management software?
So this
And
is
where are
actually,
the two?
yeah, so this is actually just Microsoft Power BI as the output. It is pulling the data from Infor IPS, which is
We purchased.
the software that we purchased, that we own. And so it's directly an output of that. This is just a way to visualize it in the way that that software can.
So this is our software.
That's correct.
Now, when we purchased that software, if I recall, so the question is, we purchased it in anticipation that they were gonna use it and we've provided it.
Correct.
Yes.
We identified as in the contract that West Basin provides the CMMS software.
Making sure they use it.
Yes.
Yeah, it was like, my question was, why are we buying this? Shouldn't they be providing that software?
Yeah.
Just wanted clarification that this is what we purchased.
I can offer, Director, that in the various proposals received for the contract O&M services, everybody had their own flavors or preferences for different products. And one of the things that we were adamant about specifying is that we had already made a significant investment, even in our staff time, with this Infor. And so we left it open that if somebody did have a better way to manage these services, we would hear it. But for the most part, everybody was encouraged to speak to how well or how effective they would be in using Infor specifically.
Thank you. That was my question. Go ahead.
All right, we can jump ahead to some of the maintenance activities that
198.
thank you. Taken place over the last month. So some just general facility maintenance photos, replacement of for blow down pumps for our backwash Tensidex, bleach dosing pumps. So we're getting some redundancy back, bleach dosing. And then on the far right there, you see anthracite media being added back into one of our Title 22 filters. Slide. This is one of a couple of major pump repair activities that took place this past month. So barrier product pump for motor repair. So this was actually returned in April, and there was some effort that kind of went into May with the INC team to reconnect the pump and motor and get that equipment back into service to support barrier production. Next slide, please. The backwash pipeline video inspection. So we have a backwash, this backwash line for our converted filters. It's had some leaks, so they actually sent that photo you see on the right. It's like a rover with a camera on it down the 20-inch pipeline to see if we could identify some of the areas that are likely for leaks. We were able to narrow it down. We actually just recently this week charged that line in the section that was identified. And there's a number of leaks. So sure we'll show photos in the future of what that actual repair looks like.
Yeah, which could potentially turn into a bigger project.
Next slide, please. This is something that was added to support some of the more stringent water quality requirements that came out of our agreement with Marathon. So it's both hardness analyzer and the enclosure required for it. So this little shed Jacobs actually had to build because this particular analyzer has a reagent that's very sensitive to temperature and humidity. It's also been hardness was a major driver, for instance, for the RO membrane replacement. So it's really a critical parameter that we want to make sure we're monitoring live. In the past, we had to do grab samples. But now we'll have a better handle on that and be able to track it more effectively.
On something like this, did we have to pay extra? This is above and beyond the basic contract.
Yes.
Yes.
How much did that little structure cost us?
I would have to verify. I don't know off the top of my head.
We have not gotten the bill.
Well, let me clarify though, that this particular analyzer was contemplated in the fixed charge that we negotiated with Marathon. And so technically Marathon had to pay.
So Marathon's gonna pay us
They're gonna pay
for
that.
4 pieces of 4x8 plywood and a
It'll be
roof
part of the fixed payment.
and a mini split.
That will come out of their fixed payment, and hardness specifically in real time was important enough for them that this was a point that we actually discussed and negotiated in the contract.
Okay.
It's a nice shed though.
Next slide, please. So, sir, it's actually smart pump station technology. It shows the installation. This is smart pump station technology, the Hyperion secondary effluent pump stations. It's the dynamic pump optimizer or DPO. And what we're getting is just some much more detailed real-time data on the performance of each of the pumps individually. It gives us data that is substantially more detailed than what's available for our SCADA system right now. The idea is we're currently in kind of a calibration phase where it's just monitoring what our current operations look like. Once it establishes that baseline, it should have enough data to then make operational recommendations. So we're maximizing our energy efficiency. Just earlier this week, we had a chance to see kind of what that dashboard looks like right now as it's still in the calibration phase. And I think it's fairly evident that there are some definite opportunities both to improve our energy efficiency and change our operations in a way that's going to extend out pump life, hopefully mitigate the amount of maintenance that's being required. There's room for improvement. That's what we're seeing. Next slide, please. Another major pump repair is one of our Title 22 product pumps. This was reinstalled May 12th. So we had back into service for Title 22 production use.
Okay, so this is critical. I just want to highlight, this is one of our major pump and production pumps, and it's been out of service a couple of years. And to bring back reliability, I want to give credit to Jason and Jeremiah to really stay on top of Powell's brother to make sure this pump was back in service in a timely manner. Because we did run into issue a couple of months ago, like when we were having high water demand and we didn't have enough pumping capacity, and it ran into some pressure issues as well when we had to turn on and off another constant speed pump, and that created subsequently created issues in the distribution system. So
I would say broadly, a lot of these pump repairs are a substantial part of this overall effort. We're seeing the improvement in our overall production.
Yeah.
Because when we have substantial redundancy, right, we can take advantage of opportunities and mitigate the degree in which we lose production when things go wrong. And then finally, we have the Carson facility influent flow meter replacement. So this is an old flow meter that has been in service for over 10 years, and we're seeing that the outputs of meant that it merited a replacement. So that was done actually in the beginning of this month of June. So that concludes our presentation. We'd be happy to answer any other questions you may have.
If I could just circle back real quick, Director, to connect the end to the beginning of this presentation. It was a long presentation, but to state the obvious and reiterate what Mario just pointed to, the level of attention to the asset management, to the maintenance activities, that absolutely has had an impact on those graphs that we showed with productivity, almost nearly meeting our budget this year. And specifically in those last 6 months, just those numbers being where they are, it's purely and obviously due to this level of attention that our staff and Jacob's staff have worked on.
So with that, are we about done?
Yes.
Okay. If there's any questions, none, then we'll wrap up. There's no closed session. This is an opportunity for director's comments and future agenda item. Do you have any comments?
Thank you, staff.
Thank you.
Okay. So we are adjourned.
Huh?